It all started on a New Year's Eve night that was supposed to be about family, laughter, and champagne. Instead, it became the night everything snapped into focus. I had spent years letting little jabs roll off me, pretending they didn't sting. But this time my sister Callie went too far. She'd always been the golden child, the one everyone praised. I was the quiet one, the one who settled. That night she made sure to remind everyone of it. My name's Tessa Ward. I'm in my mid-30s, divorced and raising two incredible kids, Eli 12 and Nora 9. My sister Callie Rowan 38, has spent her life on a pedestal built by our family's praise. Her husband Brent is the smooth-talking type, the kind of man who acts like every conversation is a business deal. My ex-husband Gavin left years ago for someone who sparkled louder. I've gotten used to the whispers, the sideways looks, the pity I never asked for. When we walked into Callie's mansion that night, everything glittered: gold balloons, polished floors, designer dresses. I wore something simple, but my kids looked beautiful, excited to celebrate. But beneath the lights and fake smiles, there was always that invisible line between Callie's perfect world and mine. She waited until the room was full, everyone with a drink in hand, to make her move. With a tipsy smile, she raised her glass and said, "These are my sister's kids. No medals, no talent, just like their mom." Then she gestured toward her daughter Sierra, showing off her awards. "Now that's what success looks like." The laughter that followed wasn't loud, but it was cruel. Cut straight through me. I saw Eli's shoulders tense, Nora's hand clutch mine a little tighter. In that moment, I felt years of swallowed humiliation rise like fire in my chest. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't give her the scene she wanted. I lifted my glass, my voice steady, and said, "Cheers. This is the last time any of you will see us." And just like that, I walked out with my kids. No looking back. No begging for respect that was never given. That night wasn't just the end of a party. It was the end of their hold on me. From the very beginning, the gap between us was crystal clear. Callie was the one everyone adored, the golden girl who could do no wrong. I was the other one, the quiet sister, the afterthought in every conversation. Our mother had this line she'd repeat so often it felt carved into me: "Callie shines and Tessa, well, she tries." I can still hear the way she'd say it, soft but sharp, as if trying wasn't enough to matter. Callie soaked up attention like it belonged to her. Awards, compliments, admiration, it all found its way to her hands, and she never had to fight for any of it. I was the one behind the curtain, making sure her spotlight never flickered. I helped her study when she couldn't focus, edited her essays, even covered for her when she messed up. No one noticed, and she never gave me credit. She didn't need to. She had the crown, I was just the hand that held it steady. Adulthood didn't change that dynamic. It only gave it sharper edges. When she maxed out her credit cards, I bailed her out. When Sierra's college payments came due and she claimed she was tight on cash, I sent the money without hesitation. When she spun stories about temporary struggles, I believed her because that's what I thought sisters were supposed to do: show up, no questions asked. Every favor became a quiet expectation. She never asked with humility. She asked like I was supposed to say yes. And I always did. To her, family meant having someone to clean up her messes. To me, family meant loyalty, even if it hurt. I told myself it was love, that being a good sister meant standing in the background while she soaked up the light. But over time, I began to feel more like her safety net than her sibling. She didn't say thank you, she didn't need to. She assumed I'd always be there. And I was. Until the night she forgot that loyalty isn't the same as servitude. That's when the roles began to shift. Not because she changed, but because I finally did. The night started with quiet preparation. I dressed Eli in the shirt he loved, fixed Nora's little braid, and reminded them to smile, to be polite, to ignore any snide comments that might come their way. They were excited, still young enough to believe family gatherings meant warmth, not sharp edges. I forced a smile in the mirror, the kind you wear like armor. Callie's house looked like a magazine spread the moment we stepped through the door. Music drifted softly from hidden speakers, the chandeliers glittered like they were part of a performance, and people floated around with glasses of champagne, pretending their smiles weren't rehearsed. Her daughter's awards were arranged on a long table like trophies in a museum, every plaque carefully positioned where no one could miss them. She spotted me almost immediately. That signature smirk spread across her face like she'd been waiting all evening for this. The polite greetings, the over-the-top compliments about her home, her daughter, her perfect life filled the air. I stood there holding onto my kids' hands, feeling like an intruder at a celebration I'd been invited to but never truly belonged in. By the time midnight approached, she'd had more champagne than tact. She lifted her glass high, swaying just slightly, and in that room full of fake cheer, she let the cruelty spill out like it was part of the toast. "These are my sister's kids," she announced, loud enough for the room to still. "No medals. No talent. Just like their mom." Then with theatrical pride she gestured toward Sierra. "Now that's what success looks like." The sound that followed wasn't explosive. It was soft, cruel laughter, the kind that cuts quietly. Eli stiffened beside me. Nora's tiny hand clenched mine so tightly it hurt. I didn't flinch. I didn't let them see even a crack. I lifted my own glass slowly, met her eyes and said evenly, "Cheers. This is the last time any of you will see us." And then I walked out. No raised voice. No tears. Just the quiet click of the door behind us and the sound of my children's footsteps following mine. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. That moment was already burned into every corner of the room. The house was silent when we got home. The kids had gone straight to their rooms without a word, their small footsteps echoing in the hallway. I sat alone on the couch, still in the same dress, the taste of that final toast lingering like something bitter I couldn't wash away. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. I almost ignored it. But the screen lit up with her name. The message was short. No apology. No hint of regret. Just 8 words that summed up everything she'd ever taken from me. "You're still covering Sierra's college payments, right?" For a second I just stared at it. My chest felt heavy, but not in the way it used to. It wasn't sadness this time. It wasn't confusion or guilt. It was something colder, clearer. Years of swallowing her insults, paying her bills, cleaning up her messes, pretending loyalty was love. All of it lined up in my head like puzzle pieces finally clicking into place. This was who she was. She hadn't even hesitated. She humiliated my children in front of everyone, and an hour later she assumed I'd still be her safety net. That was the moment the switch flipped. No yelling. No long explanations. Just a quiet, steady certainty that this would be the last time she ever took anything from me. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a few seconds. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because for the first time the silence before I answered felt like power. Then I typed. Slowly. Carefully. Every letter carrying the weight of a line finally drawn. I hit send without second-guessing. The phone chimed again almost immediately, her name flashing across the screen, but I didn't open it. I turned it face down on the table. The air felt different after that. Still heavy but clean. It wasn't a dramatic moment. It was quiet, almost eerily so. But that single text was the first crack in the foundation she'd built on my back. She just didn't know it yet. I did. And for the first time that was enough. The morning after, I woke up before the sun. For once there wasn't a knot of guilt sitting in my chest. Just quiet resolve. I made coffee, opened my laptop and stared at the list of payments that had slowly become invisible to me over the years. Tuition. Car loan. Property tax. All of it sitting there linked to my accounts like a lifeline she never had to earn. One by one I cut every single thread. No hesitation. No explanations. Tuition. Cancelled. The automatic payments vanished with a click. The car loan I'd been covering for months? Gone. Property tax. Every number I deleted felt like a door closing behind me, the sound sharp and clean. It was strange. How something that had been so tangled around my life could be undone so easily. When I finished, I picked up the phone and dialed Sierra. She sounded half asleep, surprised to hear from me. I kept my voice calm, steady. I told her she didn't deserve to be caught in the middle of adult selfishness. I explained that I wouldn't be paying for her college anymore, not because of her, but because of what her mother had turned me into. Someone she expected to carry everything without question. There was silence on the other end. Then a quiet, unsure, "I understand." Sierra wasn't cruel. She'd grown up spoiled, yes, but she wasn't blind. Somewhere in her voice, I heard the first crack in the story Callie had built. Not long after, the ripples started. A message from the college billing office went straight to Callie. The car company followed. Then the city. I didn't need to be there to know how fast that perfect smile of hers would start to falter. Rumors travel faster than champagne toasts. Whispers about missed payments, questions about how someone so perfect could be slipping. Those would spread through her polished circle like smoke. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. For years I'd held up the image she showed the world. Now I'd simply stepped away. And without me, the mask she wore so effortlessly started to slide. Quietly. Just like I'd planned. A week later I finally opened the files I'd avoided for years. Old bank statements, legal documents, and records from the trust my father left behind. I'd always believed the money was safe, untouched except for the parts I'd willingly shared. But the numbers didn't lie. The withdrawals were there, consistent, carefully timed, and all under my name. At first I thought it was a mistake. Some clerical error. But as I went deeper, the pattern became painfully clear. It wasn't just the tuition or the loan payments. It was vacations, renovations, little luxuries that had nothing to do with me. And at the center of it all was a signature. My father's. Only it wasn't his. The handwriting was too clean, too practiced. A perfect imitation that would have fooled anyone who wasn't looking closely. But I was looking now. My hands shook not from shock, but from the weight of finally seeing what had been hiding in plain sight. She hadn't just used me. She'd reached into something sacred, something meant for my children, and carved pieces out of it to build her perfect life. For a long moment I sat in silence. Then I picked up my phone and made the call. The attorney on the other end didn't need the whole story to understand the tone in my voice. This wasn't about family anymore. This was theft. Plain and simple. I gathered everything. Statements. Copies. Dates. Every piece of evidence she'd never thought I'd bother to find. And as the folder grew thicker, something inside me hardened. This wasn't just humiliation. It was betrayal so deep it left a scar. When I finally signed the retainer, there was no rush of triumph. Just a steady, cold certainty. For years she'd relied on me to stay quiet. To forgive. To bend. But this time I wasn't just stepping away. I was holding her accountable. Revenge had always sounded loud in my head. But sitting there with legal documents spread across the table, it felt nothing like that. It was silent. Precise. Controlled. And for the first time the power wasn't hers anymore. It was mine. The first whisper started quietly, almost like background noise. A cousin called, pretending to check in, but I could hear the real reason tucked behind her polite questions. Someone had mentioned unpaid bills. Someone else had talked about investments that didn't exist. The image Callie had built so carefully was starting to splinter, and the cracks were spreading fast. It didn't take long for the rest of the family to catch on. The stories she'd told for years, the carefully woven lies about how hard she'd worked, how smart her investments were, how lucky she'd been, were falling apart one piece at a time. Unpaid debts were surfacing. The paperwork she'd buried was being talked about over kitchen tables and family group chats. For years no one had questioned her. She was the untouchable one, the standard everyone was measured against. But now their eyes were shifting. This time the pointed questions weren't aimed at me. They were aimed at her. I didn't have to defend myself. I didn't have to explain anything. The truth was doing the work for me. I started getting messages I never expected to receive. Words like, "I didn't know," and "I'm so sorry." People who had looked right past me for years were suddenly seeing what had been in front of them all along. The golden sister wasn't gold at all. She was painted over with borrowed shine. Callie, on the other hand, wasn't taking it quietly. Desperation has a sound, and hers came in late-night calls I didn't answer, in long messages filled with panic and blame. The mask she wore in public was slipping, and she couldn't hold it in place anymore. The woman who had once smirked over champagne now sounded like someone watching her castle crumble. I stayed silent. No gloating. No revenge speech. No satisfaction spilled out into the world. I didn't need to scream to be heard anymore. Every lie she told was turning against her, and I didn't lift a finger. For the first time I wasn't standing in her shadow. I was standing on solid ground, and this time it belonged to me. Quietly. Steadily. Dignity reclaimed without a single word wasted. The doorbell didn't ring, it slammed. Callie's fists pounded against the door like she owned the place. I opened it slowly, already knowing the storm waiting on the other side. Her eyes were wild, her voice sharp, her entire posture radiating blame. "You need to fix this," she snapped the moment I stepped aside. "No greeting. No hesitation. You've ruined everything. Do you even realize what you've done to this family?" I didn't move. I didn't apologize. For once, I wasn't folding myself small just to make her bigger. I didn't ruin anything, I said quietly. The truth did. She stormed past me into the living room, pacing like a caged animal. Everyone's turning on me. Do you even care what they're saying? This is your fault. You should have kept quiet. You should have protected me. There was what she really meant. Protect the image, not the truth. Protect her throne, not the people she stepped on to build it. Years of swallowed words started to rise in my chest. I'd spent a lifetime tiptoeing around her rage, trying to keep peace that never really existed. But this time I stood my ground. You built your empire on lies, Callie, I said. I just stopped holding it up for you. Her face twisted, half disbelief, half fury. You're jealous. You've always been jealous of me. And suddenly, it was all there between us. Every wound, every jab disguised as a joke. Every time I was made to feel small so she could shine. No, I said, steady now. I was exhausted. There's a difference. For a second her voice faltered. The anger cracked and beneath it was something else. Fear. You're tearing us apart, she whispered as if she actually believed it. I stepped closer, not to fight but to finish. My voice didn't shake. You didn't destroy me, Callie. You just showed me who I was without you. Silence settled heavy between us. She looked at me like she didn't recognize the person standing in front of her. And maybe for the first time she didn't. Because I wasn't standing behind her anymore. I was standing on my own. The months slipped by without the constant weight pressing down on us. The silence in our home wasn't heavy anymore. It was calm. My kids laughed louder, walked taller, and didn't flinch when their worth wasn't measured against someone else's. I could see it in the way they carried themselves now. Without the endless demands and obligations, my days became my own. I poured everything I had into building something new, something just ours. A modest little business took shape, not built on guilt or pressure but on purpose. It wasn't flashy but it was real. And for the first time in years I wasn't running on empty. One afternoon Sierra showed up at my door. No expensive clothes, no forced smile. Just a girl who'd finally started seeing the cracks in the story she'd grown up believing. Her voice trembled as she said, "I'm sorry for everything. I should have known better." I didn't need her to explain. I just saw the sincerity in her eyes. The hurt she'd carried from being used as a trophy was its own kind of weight. "You don't owe me anything," I told her softly. "Just be better than what came before us." We sat on the porch as the sun dipped low, talking like two people rebuilding something fragile but honest. My kids joined us, laughter floating through the air, warm and free. The woman I used to be would have chased approval. This version of me didn't need it. I'd become the quiet center of my own life, the steady presence no one could shrink anymore. Not because I wanted to prove something, but because I finally knew I didn't have to. A year later the night felt completely different. No glittering chandeliers, no forced smiles, no competition humming beneath every word. Just soft lights strung across the porch, the scent of cocoa in the air and my kids huddled close. We'd built something small but solid, ours. Eli handed me a glass, his grin wide. Nora leaned into my side, her eyes sparkling brighter than the sky outside. I lifted my drink slowly, letting the quiet settle around us like a warm blanket. "Cheers," I whispered, steady and sure. "To never going back." My phone buzzed against the table. Her name lit up the screen like it always had, a last grasp at control. I didn't even bother to read it. Instead I turned the phone over face down and let it fade into the background. Outside, the fireworks bloomed, painting the night with color. My kids' laughter mingled with the crackling sky. This time I didn't look back. The peace wrapping around us wasn't borrowed or begged for. It was ours, finally earned. Do you think I made the right choice walking away, or should I have given them another chance? I'd really love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy stories like mine, don't forget to subscribe.